Shut up and sit down.
Round 12 of the ChampCar iRacing series takes us to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for the first time in the ChampCar iRacing series. The Volkswagen Jetta will be taking us through the racing at round 12, around Ohio's most famous racetrack. Qualifying underway right now before we get into our 1 hour race where the points will be paid at the end. And those points becoming ever so critical as we wind down towards the end of the season. Our championship winner is going to be getting a free entry into a ChampCar iRacing series event of their choosing next year. And also, one of our participating drivers is going to be randomly drawn from a hat at the end of the season and given an equal prize as well. So $3,000 of ChampCar credit being given away at the end of this season. Half of it to our championship winner, half of it to a driver who showed up to at least 12 races, logged their laps, competed with us, and showed their ChampCar spirit. Super excited to see who might take either of those prizes at the end of the year. And the championship-wise, things are starting to heat up. David Haynes, Devin Peters with me. Devin, Mark McCormick won last time out at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Now he's currently sitting on pole position with just 5 minutes left in this session. He's on a bit of a hot streak.
Yeah, but he's created a fair share of controversy along the way, with the way that last race finished. So I got to be thinking that he'll be looking over his shoulders if he manages to hold on to pole in this qualifying session here.
So as always, 3 different cars that get used across this 16-round season of the ChampCar iRacing series. We've used the Mazda MX-5. It'll be back later in the year. We were in the street stock last time. That big V8 oval racing machine. It was a pretty good car. Pretty exciting for Mosport Park. But we're back in the Volkswagen Jetta diesel front-wheel drive. Very quick DSG gearbox and some very, very toasty at times road tires. That's something across a 60-minute race the driver's going to have to watch out for. Those front tires do all of the work and they get searingly hot. If you can be kind to them, give them a little bit of rest, a little bit of break, that'll reward you along the long stints of this race.
Yeah, and Mid-Ohio is not a track that's known for being easy to overtake at, and these guys in these cars are probably going to experience some troubles with that as well. So it's really going to be down to putting a lot of pressure on the guys ahead, I think, and trying to force errors. And honestly, these things are built like tanks, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see some door banging and some bent fenders by the time we're all said and done.
Wouldn't be surprised if someone assembling these cars in the factory had previously worked on tanks. We've got about 20 cars, exactly 20 cars at the minute. Still time for a couple more to pop in if they do. But given it's round 12, given this is a paid circuit, and given not everyone is a fan of the Volkswagen Jetta, though it does replicate some of the vehicles you might find in the ChampCar Endurance Series in the real world, being front-wheel drive and heavily, heavily road-derived. It's not the most popular car, but it serves a purpose in this season. Will it be back for next season? That one's still up in the air, but always plenty of updates going on the iRacing service, which give us other content to consider. For example, the Pontiac Solstice getting new, racier tyres. Might see that fall back into favour next season. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the grid shakes out like for next year. But for today, it looks like Mark McCormick's got a pretty commanding lead at the front of this qualifying field. Running a 1:39.1, and his closest competition, Nick Love, a 1:39.9. So it's going to be tough for the other guys to get up to his back bumper.
Yeah, and it's a warm September afternoon at Mid-Ohio. We've got, I'm going to call that a track temperature probably in the high 90s. Oh, it's mid-90s. Here we go. I'm getting better and better at guessing what something's going to be like in Fahrenheit after seeing the Celsius number. So that's not bad. That's not bad. But as we mentioned, The higher the track temperature, the more a car like this begins to suffer. Those front tires are at their best quite early, and then they sort of hit a plateau that's maybe about half a second a lap slower once they get over the wrong side of that temperature cycle.
Mm-hmm. And the other factor that will certainly come into play with these guys is just making sure that they're maximizing the pit stop. So we've seen so far this series that the pit stop is usually for no tires in this car because it uses so little fuel. But with a little bit warmer track today, it could be something that guys are going to think about.
As you can see, time's rapidly running out in qualifying. We've got about half the field still out there. Mark McCormick, currently sitting on pole, has parked it. Nick Love, second at the moment, and he's right up behind number 12, Sean Saputra, which is maybe, unless he gets a really good slipstream or Saputra pulls something out of the bag, might just get in the way of Nick Love and prevent him from going faster here. And we are using that keyhole chicane before the hairpin in the first sector. So that makes it a little more difficult to get past someone there, but does give you a little more challenge.
Well, and it will be featured this weekend, from what I hear, in the real ChampCar series. So on one of the days at least. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what the reviews are on that in real life. As we see Saputra get cleaned out by Nick Love. Made an ambitious move there, but as you can see, both cars still drivable, though they are both deciding to go back to the pits, really showing off the durability of these things.
Absolutely. Checkered flags waving at the moment, so drivers on a lap are going to get to complete them, but for Sean Saputra and Nick Love, that's their qualifying done. Got Chris Knisley, where's he sitting at the minute? In 8th. He's on a lap around, it's about 2.5 miles here. There's a lot of tracks in that sort of that 2.5 mile length, Mid-Ohio being one of them.
Yeah, and the most notable person I'm seeing driving around here actually is Justin Hall. Second place overall in the points with 11 rounds counting so far this year, but he's currently in 19th place, and he's been running laps, but I haven't seen him put in anything faster than 41.3. So we'll see if this brings him back up into where he hopes to be. And a little improvement, but not a whole bunch. So, he's going to be fighting for the most improved, I think, during this race.
And this is an interesting thing I think we see with the Jetta is what was the field spread in qualifying with the street stock at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park? Probably 5 or 6 seconds. Here, it's just 2. Everyone is so close and so equal, and finding any more performance out of this car is really, really tough. Everyone's right at that limit, and from the top to the tail of the field, only 2 seconds.
With that DSG gearbox, you don't really struggle for putting down the power or shifting gears or anything. So it's a lot more consistent to drive as well. I'm not seeing anyone else on track though at this point. Anyone else on the fast lap that you got?
I think it might just be Justin. So how's he doing? Some interesting corners, a bit of elevation change, particularly in the back half of the sector here. Ohio not necessarily thought of being particularly hilly or mountainous. In fact, some might describe it as otherwise, but there's just some little bits of elevation around here that can really challenge you, and one of them is coming across the crest. But I think Justin Hall was just going for all the practice time he could get, sticking it out on track there. So that is going to lock in the grid for our 1 hour race here at Mid-Ohio in the ChampCar iRacing series. They're going to grid up for our rolling start behind the iRacing brand sedan pace car, but here is what the grid is going to look like. Mark McCormick on the front row with Nick Love, Alex Albert and Andrew Kosick on row 2. So the most mint car on the second row. Good qualifying for him. We've got Keith Carlson and Mark Kruger on row 3. Keith Carlson, a real quiet achiever this season, has just been banking points at every available opportunity. Don't know if he's had many podiums, but he's always been there, Keith Carlson. Neil Hancock and Chris Knisley, row number 4. And then Tim Wire and Charles Kowalczyk are row number 5, top 10 on the grid. We've got Greg Vandervert, then Sean Saputra, Jason Fianek, Kyle Smith, Troy Isidore, David Warden, David Palermo, Scott Grinnell, Justin Hall, and John Vexler without a qualifying time in 20th. Qualifying times from 19 of the 20 drivers present. You look at that, you look at the pace car, and you think, it's probably got 3 times the horsepower of these Volkswagen Jetta diesels that are about to go racing and not make a lot of noise.
None of the torque, though.
Oh yeah, you can pull away in 6th gear. Tow a camper van, no worries. No worries with one of these.
Smog regulations, though. Jeez Louise.
This pace car's going to get rolling. Truncated pace lap, formation lap here, just through the last sector. That interesting and challenging hairpin, particularly with the understeer characteristic of this car. That's one of the places I saw some drivers pushing the limits, but struggling in qualifying. They can stay formed up 2x2. Once again, in red and white, Mark McCormick, winner last time out, on the pole position here. Nick Love in the police Interceptor has not had a great start. Alex Albert's already all over them as they head down towards turn 1. Albert ducks out of that one, and then they're going to head towards the keyhole for the first time. Whole field starting to string out single file, but on that back straight, the slipstream is potentially going to bring them all back together. A couple of off-roading adventures there.
Yeah, Sean Saputra decided to take out every single cone on the first lap. We'll see if they remember that later on.
The corner workers will note that one down potentially, but still McCormick leading. Love in second has steadied himself, following the wheel tracks of the car in front to become past what would be the starting line for IMSA and IndyCar, and towards the best overtaking opportunity down here at China Beach and across this section. All through the field, don't see a lot of moves being made early. Drivers are be getting temperature into their tyres right now until they reach that point where the tyres will get over temperature and over pressured, and the grip and speed will start to go away from them. So off the start, positions and movers. Keith Carlson got a good jump on Andrew Kosick. Chris Knisley took a position away from Neil Hancock, but no giant movers, just a couple of drivers who maybe in the side-by-side start took a position away, but they actually started level with that driver.
Yeah, and this will be sort of the story of the race. It's a little bit more bike race than it is race cars. You know, with these things, you got to really kind of watch what the other guys are doing around you and take advantages of any little mistakes. Speaking of little mistakes, Justin Hall just put all 4 tires off after making a move on David Warden at the back of the pack. He's now dropping down back into last place on the field, but we'll see if he's able to make that back up. Just a little ambitious going into, that would have been like corner number 13 there, coming out of Thunder Valley.
Yeah, these cars don't like driving across the grass. It's one of the only times you'll get oversteer out of this front-wheel drive Volkswagen Jetta. You can see not a bad start to the race for your pole sitter Mark McCormick. Nick Love right into the rhythm as well. But Alex Albert, I feel, just under a little bit of pressure still.
Well, certainly in the points race. I mean, Mark's really been stacking the wins in this last part of the race, and on the other hand, Alex has plenty of races in hand, so he can afford to drop a few bad results like this if some things were to go wrong. Whereas Mark McCormick, because he missed a few races earlier this season, he won't get any of those drop weeks. He's going to have to count every single one from now until the end of the season, but he's certainly making them count from what we've seen so far.
So fast starting Keith Carlson from 5th up into 4th. Now he has been pretty close with some pretty tight lines through sector number 2, really sticking with Albert, trying to keep it within a car length or so. And this is one of the things. Albert's taking these wider entries, and Carlson is really pointing it towards the apex, diving it in a little bit deep, and still managing to get some rotation at the minute.
Well, and I've been noticing, just watching the brake lights on McCormick's car, he really seems to just know the minute that car wants to start losing the rear end, and he really balances it well on the brakes all the way through some of these longer corners, where I'm seeing the other guys just let the rear end hang out and scrub a lot of speed, So I'm not sure if they got a good enough look at it to figure it out, but we'll see if that advantage continues all the way through the stint for Mark McCormick, as it stands now nearly 2 seconds ahead of second place, 2 laps into this thing.
As you can see, a very, very, very production interior and everything for this Volkswagen Jetta. You could take the roll bar out and give it to your grandma to go do grocery shopping. They are as close to a road car as anything on the iRacing service. Very complete interior for what was a cup spec vehicle. You saw McCormick pick up the fastest lap of the race last time around. Only driver to get into the 1:39 so far in this race. Everyone else, I tell a lie, Chris Knisley had a 1:39 as well, but everyone else very much in the 140s, very similar speed all throughout the field.
Yeah, interestingly enough there, Chris Knisley set a lap nearly, like 0.6 of a second faster than his fastest qualifying lap on lap 2 there. And only 5,000ths of a second off the leader's fastest lap, though of course the leader's going to reset that again now down to a 39.5. But some really good pace there early from Nicely, and it'll be interesting to see if he can back that up at all, because there's definitely a few points available for the taking, and that'll help his position out, sort of being around 14th place in the points as it stands right now.
Well, we logged a lot of laps at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park 2 weeks ago, doing 1 minute 10, 1 minute 15-ishes. This is going to be quite a few laps within the hour here as well. Drivers doing under 2-minute lap times. It's a rarity at some of the other tracks we go to. For example, Daytona Road Course and others. Albert, really, really deep at the back straight there, nearly into the rear bumper of Nick Love. Got close, but that was not the fastest line. That's Keith Carlson to the back of him. So yeah, a shorter layout than Sebring or some of those other larger road courses that we go to in this season. We don't get as many laps here. They're definitely going to get 35, 36.
Oh, no.
Also with a problem contact with Alex Albert, who's going to go hard into the concrete there. That's damage on the front of Alex Albert after Nick Love was off and they've made contact.
Oh, and that car's smoking real bad. It's hard to wreck these things, but I think Nick Love might have just done it. Who else is that?
So Albert's going to limp that thing around to the pit lane, but it is heavily, heavily damaged, and you saw
Carlson's in the pit as well. And we're 3 wide on the front straight right now with Hancock, Kruger, and Kowalczyk there. Sorting it down to 2 wide going into turn number 1. Ooh. Well, as promised, things got a little bit, bumpers sticking out and all that. Real unfortunate series of events there for Alex Albert, just going back and looking at the replay. Nick Love gets it in a little bit hot, coming over the crest, and then slides it out wide into the grass and loses it completely. And then as the tires grip up, Alex Albert is coming by fully committed and just gets caught on the rear bumper straight into that wall.
Kruger and Hancock are going to go at it one more time there, side by side again. And Hancock's looking down the inside, but it's not going to break as deep. And a pretty stout, solid defense then from Kruger. So just 20 seconds of service for Keith Carlson and Nick Love and Alex Albert. And so they're always going to have to make a pit stop somewhere in this race, but I think that'll get them to the end from there. That'll be
as you mentioned,
salvage some points.
Yeah, as we mentioned, these things are like really, really efficient on the fuel, so they tend to not take very long pit stops at all. Um, so yeah, I think with that fast repair, it's possible that we'll see Carlson and Alex back up near the front. Though that wreck did cost them a solid 10 or 15 seconds that they'll have to make up now, driving from the back.
Mark McCormick can rub his hands with glee. He's 7 seconds clear of the rest of the field already. And previously had some wins in the Jeddah, I think at VIR South and maybe even some others. So Knisley in second. Mostmin's Andrew Cosick running in third at the moment. That would be a different podium than some of the other ones we've seen so far. Knisley and Cosick keeping their noses clean.
Well, and I'm going to have to get our producer to back it up a little bit and take a look at Justin Hall's entry to pit lane that last time by if he can manage it. Um, he saw everyone coming into the pit lane last time, and well, on the way in, he overshot the entry, all 4 tires off, and barely kept it from smacking the wall. And then the adrenaline of all that, I think, led to him missing his pit box and having to back it up too. So not the finest hour for him. This might be one to forget when it's all said and done, but certainly an entertaining way to do that pit stop.
Looks like
he's pulled off now. I think he got a speeding unsafe entry penalty for that one. So yeah, he opted to tow back to the pits.
Well, that's a shame to see Justin Hall out of the race early. Everyone else who's made their pit stops has continued on. So that's 1 retirement, 1 DNS, and still 18 running.
Yeah, and now we've got a new second place driver up there with Chris Nicely holding off Andrew Cosick. And Chris Nicely, we gotta shout him out a little bit. See if we can get a shot of that hood. The fine Haynes Her Way sponsored car there. I feel like that's familiar. Hey Haynes.
It's spelt wrong.
I love to see it.
So he's our biggest mover in the field at the moment. No, he's not. Second biggest mover in the field. It's Chris Knisley. He's come from 8th on the grid. He's running second at the moment. You can see Cosick is not far behind him at all. It's Scott Grinnell who's come from 18th, running in 10th, who's actually the biggest mover at the minute. But like we said, very, very close in qualifying. 2 seconds from the very top to the very bottom around this layout, and that is a much more compressed field, much more even times than the MX-5, which you can push a little harder through the corners and therefore has a skill gap in that area, and that burbling V8 street stock, which gets up to a bit more speed and uses up the rear tires a little more, and therefore also requires a little more finesse and has a little bit more of a skill gap. This thing, is it like driving an RC car? Is it a bit just on, off the throttle, point where it goes and it goes? It's got ABS, right?
It does. I would honestly say that there's a sneaky skill gap in this car to be had, though, because one of the things that you kind of lose sight of when you've got a lot of power or a really good power to weight ratio is really sort of being efficient with how much input you're using at the right times. And this car really demands some precise driving from the driver. Too much steering wheel, and you're going to be scrubbing speed. Too much oversteer, you're scrubbing speed. And even just a slightly bad line, and it's going to cost you a real big amount, as we're seeing, because Mark McCormick is just driving away from these guys at the front of the field, now nearly 8 seconds ahead of second place. And, it adds up over the course of a big long lap like this one.
So a couple good battles. This one for second place. Mark Kruger and Kowalczyk and Hancock behind that. Carl Smith's holding off Greg Vandervert. Both of them have picked up a bunch of positions so far in this race as well. That'll happen when the drivers from the first and the second row come together early in the race, though. A bit of freebies for everyone else. Troy Isidore, Scott Grinnell, David Warden battling, David Palermo and Sean Saputra battling. A bit of something for everyone.
Yeah, and this is really the stuff you come to look for when you're watching these champ car races. Just battles throughout the field, guys of all different skill levels, and it really is interesting just watching Warden and Grinnell and Isdor here. Grinnell really seems to have the advantage going into Thunder Alley, and then kind of loses some of it through turn 1 and 2. So we'll watch him close up here, and we'll see if he's learned anything. Oh, and he gets real close there, nearly makes contact with Troy, but manages still to get it tucked in and straighten out that last little corner a little bit better. Still doesn't get the run that Troy manages to, though, onto the front straight. Troy drives away from him all the way down the front straight.
Sometimes be some difference in shifting points. Neither of those guys trouble the yellow apex curb at turn 1, and then they need to get it across to the left-hand side of the circuit a lot earlier than if you weren't running the keyhole, and then trying to take the line, carry the speed through here. That tail was getting a little loose for Scott Grinnell, but at least it's helping him rotate the car. Now he's really got to square off his exit here. He is good and close to Troy Isidore. You could fit maybe one Jetta still in between them. And see what effect does Grinnell get from the slipstream in this car. Not a lot.
I think Grinnell's not learned the sneaky shift points in this car, because there's about a 50 RPM spot where where your RPMs are just kind of right, and if you shift any later or any earlier, you're losing the 10th down the straight.
You can definitely rev the engine out further past what would probably be the competitive shift point as well. Again, diesel, a lot of torque down low. It's not making peak power right at the red line. It happens a little earlier than that.
Yeah, absolutely, but
still really tuned. Is the power band as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure you'd move it much though with the diesel. Be interesting. Certainly. I'm surprised we haven't seen more of these things out at the Champ Car world. Maybe not Jettas in particular, but certainly the powertrain.
I do like riding on board because the iRacing driver model, very, very good at not shuffle steering. You can tell that this is a computer program, not a real Champ Car Endurance Series onboard, because...
Oh. There's an overtake happening. Charles Gwalchik coming down the front straight, making a move here. Looks like alongside Mark Kruger. Charles Gwalchik gets a real good run out of turn number 4, the hairpin there, and then makes a real nice clean move there. Almost no defense for Mark Kruger. Just drives it right by him. Well executed.
Good work, Kowalczyk, with a very, very good tribute livery to the ill-fated misadventure that was Volkswagen TDI engines. And he's gotten past Mark Kruger, who I've got to say, that must be a tribute to Mazda engines.
All of them running in line, just like that, too.
Tell you what, Hancock might be the next to line up Mark Kruger in this battle. The orange machine of the Volkswagen genuine parts and accessories. That's a good run out the hairpin and onto the pit straight. These two have been side by side in this place like this before, but not really enough overlap there. Neil Hancock exercised some caution here, and wide berth given by Mark Kruger as well.
Yeah, and it's hard to trail break these things. They don't really seem to like it that much. Too much, and you'll start to whip it around if you're not careful. I think there's a fair amount of rear brake the way they're set up in the series right now. Spec setups in the Champ Car world this week anyway.
What can you change on the setup of these cars?
I think it's tire pressures. I think that's it.
I think it's and fuel level. I think that's literally the two things. Everything else, it's a road car. It really is. You see the interior. It's got road car ABS. It's got road car gearbox and shift points and engine tuning and.
Little look there from Neil Hancock. Look for a moment like he might have something as Mark took kind of the standard line rather than the defensive line, but not quite enough overlap.
And this car is the kind of nonsense iRacing had to scan in the late 2000s before they were buddy with Porsche and BMW and IMSA and Ferrari, and this is what they had available to them, so this is what they built.
Yeah, it is kind of funny to consider a big picture, I'm sure they wouldn't mind getting their hand on that Volkswagen IDR car, but
It's
I'm not sure how much jet is in that.
We've got a hill climb now. Good thinking.
Yeah. I still remember tuning all those old cars in Gran Turismo. Come on, iRacing, let's do it.
Suzuki Vitara hill climb thing, maxed out.
Oh yeah.
Turbo boost. What was it? Oh no, it was branded Escudo, wasn't it?
It was an Escudo. Yeah, what a beaut.
It's almost 20 minutes into this one now. Your leader has completed 11 laps, running lap 12, running away with it. Mark McCormick is 11 seconds clear of second place, but then there's only half a second between those. And these battles that I mentioned, maybe, 5-10 minutes ago, they're all still together. It's so difficult to find a competitive edge in this car with no need for traction control and road-tuned ABS. Everyone's braking similarly, turning in similarly, and to find that edge and that performance is tough in this Jetta.
Yeah, and it tends to be one of those cars where the harder you drive it, the more it punishes you, from what I find. So, you really kind of have to find that happy balance of getting 99.9% of the tires, because as soon as you go to 100.1, it starts to scrub and it starts to lose you speed.
Also, road car steering rack, and you see that anytime we go on board, how much almost hand over hand got to do.
Little excitement midfield. Greg Vandevert puts all four tires off, slides it real wide. He was trying to make a move on Kyle Smith there for 8th, or for 7th rather, but that's not going to stick for him. Smith having a pretty solid race so far, up nearly 7 positions since the start of the race. One of our big movers on the day. He and Scott Grinnell and then Kowalczyk and Nicely are the only ones that have seen some real movement today through the field. And what a sacrilegious livery that is.
Yeah. Tell you what, the colors do look better on a Porsche. Take note, Germany, but I don't know. Everything else is in the right place. You got Total Oil. That's what it burns. You got Michelin tires on the bumper. That's what you're roasting. It's got
Martinis.
Rossi on the door. That's what he'd rather be doing. So Agent Smith, 14th on the grid, 7th at the moment. And as you say, very, very fuel efficient. When it comes to the pit stop for our drivers, they're going to be tossing up, do I need 2 or do I need 3 gallons of diesel? It's not going to be a whole fuel jug to get them through. Very, very miserly, very efficient. You used to be able to do bordering on 4-hour stints with this thing. We tried that one time, I think.
Yeah, that was one of the finer learning experiences. These things are very competitive against cars much faster than them in the endurance world, because you never ever have to take a pit stop in the sim.
So with that in mind, the drivers have started with a small amount of fuel, but that will still carry them a long way into the race. Still going to need to see a pit stop later on from everyone, but we've had that early flurry of pit stop from the drivers who got a little too excited early on. And now we're settling in, and somewhere past the halfway, we'll see everyone, including your leader, have to make that apparently difficult pit entry. That might be where the excitement happens in this race.
Yeah, I could absolutely believe that. Speaking of excitement, Alex Albert has managed to catch up to Tim Wire and actually make a move on him for 18th place there. So he's taken 1 spot back after that early pit stop. We'll see how many others he can find. The next car for him is about 5 seconds up the road, and then another 30 to the car beyond that. So Still some significant ground to make up after all that drama early on.
What about Carlson and Shaputra, 2 black cars side by side? And I think Carlson is gonna do well for himself there as they come over the crest of the hill. Good viewing there for IndyCar in 2019, and if you're me and you get sunburnt, but a good day and a good move for Keith Carlson, who's still on the rebound after his pit stop.
Yeah, I was going to check in on him. Of course, Carlson, 4th place in the points, I believe it is right now. Yeah, that's what it is. So 3rd place in the points is Nick Love, and he had that contact with Alex earlier on as well. He's already cleared Sofianek and only about 7 seconds behind that battle that we just witnessed between Carlson and Palermo. So we'll be expecting to see him entering the picture pretty quickly too, driving that Blues Brothers inspired livery, I believe. It was wonderful watching these things just plow on corner entry. It's something else.
I said you could tow a caravan, but I reckon you could also tow a plow or a harvester or something.
I feel like one of these things could probably nearly pull one of those mud trucks around, you know? The big Florida ones.
These are tax exempt in Germany because they're considered farm equipment.
There you go. We are seeing a little move around up here though. That's Andrew Kosic's Mostman car, real slow. He's just given up 2 positions there to Kruger and Hancock, and I haven't seen exactly why. Oh, and he's spun it.
He's caught a little more grass as well on the live picture as well. So he's struggling there.
Going back and watching the replay, it actually looks like he and Nicely got alongside each other and then made some contact going across the IndyCar start-finish line down the big straight. A little wiggle and contact. Andrew knocks Nicely nearly off the track, and then Nicely comes back again. These things are so durable; they just bounce back and hit you again. And then Kosick rejoins the track and immediately gets off the track again. I think having suffered some damage in that whole thing, maybe his right rear wheel pointed with a lot more toe than it had at the start of the race.
Yeah, that thing wasn't steering straight for Kosick, so he's brought it to pit lane, and he's going to get that fixed and make his pit stop a little early. But yeah, a little bit of door-to-door for 2nd and 3rd, and cost Nicely some time, let Charles Kowalczyk catch them, and Kosick hasn't come off undented, unscratched from that either.
Oh yeah, and Nicely having a pretty solid race so far, but he and Kowalczyk are kind of in the same region in the points, around 11th place there. So this is a battle that will continue for them, absolutely. Very interesting to see the different approaches through here.
I just like the contrast of the incredibly sooted Charles Kowalczyk in monochrome black and white, closing down white and pastel pink Chris Nicely.
That really suits the both of them, as near as I can tell. But yeah, even in driving styles, like Kowalczyk seems to like to dive it in a little bit more on entry and kind of pays the price all the way through the middle and exit. Meanwhile, Nicely, when he gets it right, seems to have a little more control, but he loves to run that thing wide, as we see on the exit of turn 1, and really push it almost too far sometimes.
Yeah, that narrowed his entry to the keyhole a little bit. Now, this is what you're talking about. Wider for Nicely, tighter line for Kowalczyk, who is going to pick up the power pretty good. Are we going to see a repeat of what we just saw with Kosick? What is Kowalczyk going to do in the slipstream?
Nicely knows that he can defend the outside. Oh man, look at Kowalczyk's racing suit there. Nailing it. Brought his Haynes to the track.
Well, at least he's comfortable. But he was comfortable staying right behind Nicely and didn't really look to attack just yet. He's looking at that rear bumper, and they are close up together.
You can really run these things close together. But again, you kind of see the difference in approach there. Kowalczyk getting that run.
So Kowalczyk's racing in his boxes. Who is it that often has the unicorn in their car? I've seen that at some of the onboards from Sebring. As Kowalczyk's close again. Now he's looking for turn one. He has his nose to the inside. That is, of course, going to force Knisley a little wider.
Seen a pit stop from Kyle Smith. I think that's on schedule, more or less. I'll keep an eye on that.
He's seen the halfway point of the race, there or thereabouts, and come in early. It gives a little bit of respite to the tyres, lets them cool off a little bit. And even though you might load in a gallon or two of fuel, when you come back out, you will be a little bit quicker immediately after the pit stop until the tyres equalise at whatever ungodly temperature it is that they run at. Oh, bump draft, second and third.
Yeah. Well, that might be the secret if those two want to have any shot at catching McCormick, though it's going to be a tall order with him being now nearly 20 seconds up the road from them. We've noted that Kyle Smith's come out and only taken about 15 seconds of fuel, only about 15 seconds stationary for him, relative to some of the other drivers like Albert and Nick Love, who were closer to about 20 seconds. So maybe a little more information. He's been able to guess the mileage of this race a little bit better. But either way, he's gained about 5 seconds through that exchange of pit stops.
Easy to crunch the numbers at halfway too, isn't it? Okay, how much fuel did I burn in 30 minutes? And so that's how much I'm going to need for the next 30 minutes. As Kowalczyk is sick and tired of being behind Knisley, he's also going to go for pit lane.
And a really confident pit entry there for him and Neil Hancock as well, who was running 4th place. We see him tucked in the background as well.
You think he just didn't want to look at that rear bumper anymore? And
the kids came in the room, you know? An effective deterrent there, certainly.
So how much fuel for these guys? Kowalczyk reaching at about 15 seconds or so.
And Hancock's actually getting tires on the right side at least, and the left side. Meanwhile, Kowalczyk's all the way out the pits nearly.
I reckon, what, a front right and a front left? Just 2 tires probably, but the car got jacked up on both sides. 23 seconds for Hancock. So that's only 3 seconds longer than no tires Kowalczyk. I wonder if this will pay any benefit. In the long run, probably not, but there's probably a 4 or 5 lap window here where just the tire temperature for Hancock is going to be feeling real fresh.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm also noticing, and maybe I'm not sure it's just me, but Charles Kowalczyk looks like he's driving a little crooked down the straightaways. Am I just getting some weird visual artifacting, or that right rear looks like it's not pointed quite the right way to me?
We'll find out. He's rejoined into a bit of traffic here, and actually right in front of Nick Love, who's also cleared his pit stop. So Kowalczyk and Love battling for position proper. They've come out behind Sean Saputra and might have to close and pass him. So the 3 of them all are going to accordion together. What's your verdict on the steering for Kowalczyk? I reckon he might have a little bit of right hand down.
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
As far as slop in the steering goes, it's still luxury. As Sean Saputra pits from in front of them.
On schedule.
I've seen some ChampCar on boards with a lot more in the steering.
I'll give you that too. I've been on board some of those. Oh man, yeah, that on board, that helmet cam angle, that brings you back to like the early days of iRacing, when your options were this and the Solstice.
So yeah, the verdict is I think that bumper is pushed in a little bit on the back right. Hard to tell because the car is so dark all around. It doesn't really seem to be hurting his pace. Leader is on pit lane as well. Mark McCormick is going to clear his pit stop.
Actually, on track here, Neil Hancock making a move. Diving up the inside of Mark Kruger, or trying to. Doesn't quite get overlap and gets the door slammed on him again. Good defensive driving from Kruger there through that section, but he keeps that up, and I wonder if Hancock just rolls it a little deeper into the corner and lets him know he's there next time around.
Hancock is the driver with those new tires as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a little wide from Kruger. They are going to get side by side, and I think this will be Hancock's moment.
Yeah, and I think you are seeing the benefit of those tires here because he seems to be able to stick it in some places that I don't think that Kruger could. Like even just getting it to rotate and then stick on the exit of that corner really seemed to work out for him.
Everyone else pitting following Mark McCormick, so that is going to clear out our whole field. 13-second stop for McCormick, very, very quick, and he extends his lead a little further. Knisley has come out, though, behind Keith Carlson. So after that early stop, Carlson has gone pretty quick all through that stint, and he's back up into second place.
Well, and when you're the leader, you have a pretty good idea how much pace you want to have. That is kind of shockingly short for him, though. 2 seconds slower or quicker rather than the nearest, and probably 7 seconds closer than the average of the field. So, or shorter rather than the average of the field. So, I don't know. I'm a little worried about Mark McCormick there.
We'll see if he has to slow the pace up a little bit later on. I'm excited to see this battle for the final step on the podium, though, because Knisley and Kowalczyk and Love, we saw Kowalczyk was closing up behind Knisley, thinking about trying to pass him before the pit stop. Now he's going to do it all again with Nick Love, who we know has been quick in this Jetta, closing them both down.
Well, and also Nick Love, a guy for whom these points matter a lot. I mean, sitting in third place in the overall, this is going to be a significant one for him if he can work this back.
And after those pit stops, everyone's getting back together because it's a four-way battle for 10th place as well. Some drivers who just come out of the pit lane. That Greg Vandervert has rejoined, just finishing his outlap right in the middle of a good little battle. So, you know, the Jetta is not necessarily the most enjoyable to drive, the way you've got to drive it, the way it doesn't feel particularly responsive, but it does give close racing. And look, Alex Albert defending champ in this four-way battle as well.
Yeah, and he'll be hoping to clear these guys as quick as he can, but easier said than done in this car. It's kind of interesting to see how these guys really have to check it up on the early part of that corner to try and get the run. Alex Albert does get the run. He's going to get a little overlap on Van Vert here. Oh, no, he tucks it back in.
He was close. It was a narrow exit. Now he's getting closer again. How brave does he feel on the brakes? Answer is he's thinking about it. He wants the move, throws it down the inside, but this is tough to do because the driver behind can sometimes cross it back over, but I think he can park it on the apex here. That is a spot gained for Albert, but it checks up Vandervert and lets Tim Wire get really close as well. So this battle, these four, not over yet, and Albert might still drag those other two up towards Sophianek here as well. There's still opportunities to be clever in the traffic and show some good racecraft.
And Tim Wire is an aggressive guy. He likes to make some overtakes. He likes to make some moves on corner entry. So he's looking spicy as he looks at the bumpers ahead of him.
No doubt. Action for their money, today's drivers in the ChampCar iRacing series. And I say that figuratively because it is free entry into the ChampCar iRacing series free entry with prizes on offer. What more do you want?
Yeah. I wouldn't complain. And we've got still all of them checking up, and Alex makes that really tight entry to the hairpin work there.
Yeah, wide from Safinek that sees Alex get ahead and does check up everyone behind. They can pick and choose what way they want to go. You got 4 jetters in about 4 jetter lengths here, and look at Vandervert just positioning himself like, I think I'm going to try to follow Alex through here, is what he's trying to do. As Safinek in green's a little offline, brakes a little early, but so too does Vandervert very early on the brakes. Didn't want to be part of an incident there, wasn't sure what might happen with those two side by side in front of him. Now, long way around at the crest of the hill isn't going to work, and Tim Wire is here to pick up the biscuit crumbs. Does that expression still work for what Americans call a biscuit?
Not one bit, but that's okay. Tim Wire makes the move stick, and I guess I'm probably a poor judge of what
then he's wide, and Vandervert wants back. So they're side by side as they come through a section here where you're really close to the Armco, close as you ever get to this feeling like a street circuit. Vandervert was on the right line, but the car was a little sideways, and now he's just got to keep it on line.
Oh, no.
Wire won't. He's onto the grass, and he can front wheel drive, just mash the throttle and point it back onto the surface, but that's going to cost him a bit of time, which we've learned in this car is going to be difficult to make back up when everyone's so close. Wire just a little hot in and loses a bit of time. No damage done though. That'll be good for him.
Yeah. Well, and I'm intrigued now that battle sorted itself out a little bit by the battle here between Charles Kowalczyk and Nick Love for 4th and 5th place. And, you know, they're kind of going back and forth a little bit, but they're also still right behind Chris Nicely for 3rd as well. So all the different pieces of this battle here are kind of, you know, ebbing and flowing a little bit as they try to make some room for themselves. I really think that
danger always with these 1 hour races is that you feel like you're racing for 10 minutes and then just driving around all by yourself for 50 minutes. That is not what is happening with the Jetta at Mid-Ohio. We've got all these battles still kicking off, and Kowalczyk, I think, is driving a lot looking in his mirrors because Nicely has finally been able to build a 1 second gap away from these two. They could have been applying the pressure onto him, but as you see, a little wide in the corner for Kowalczyk. He's driving in his mirrors, trying to make sure he brakes really deep, but it's not helping him roll speed through the corners and get good exits and set good lap times. It's a defensive way of driving.
Well, and I was going to say, it seems to me like Nick Love has the pace right now. Out of the two of them, he keeps getting back to the bumper and then keeps kind of losing his line at the last second. So at some point, he's going to find an opening and kind of try to make it stick. You see Kowalczyk make that really defensive entry the way we saw Alex doing it earlier. Really seems to stymie any attempts to overtake and be the best for giving you a run on the way out.
So Mark McCormick happy in the lead with about 11 or so laps to go for him. He's a driver who is just, clocking the laps all by himself and just watching the lap times tick off. Keith Carlson similar in 2nd, but then 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Could still be some fireworks here, some quiet diesel fireworks. Nicely no longer quite able to drive away, was back within the 2nd there. But you get a lot of value for money watching Charles Kowalczyk because he throws that car deep into the corners. He gets a little bit sideways. He's almost kicking up the grass in some places. He's ringing it and just making himself difficult to pass for Nick Love.
Yeah, and he really doesn't seem to have found the right spot to get that run yet. I'm kind of surprised. He drove up to the back of Kowalczyk so quick that I expected he'd be able to clear him, but looks like he doesn't quite have the pace advantage necessary right now.
If you weren't watching there, you'd be watching Kruger and Kosick. A couple good battles going on at the minute.
Yeah. Cossack's got some overlap coming down after the exit of turn 2 there.
Oh, he's trying to come through the keyhole there, and he wisely backed out of that one, and he's found himself a little offline, but that was an interesting place to look for a move for Cossack.
Yeah, and honestly, as our fans will have noticed, there's the battle in between the two of them, between Smith and Hancock, that also seems to be kicking off. I've been watching Hancock make some moves on Kyle, and Kyle seems to be feeling the pressure because I saw him drive straight off the track on the exit of turn 1 and have to gather it up as well. So Hancock makes a move up the inside.
New tires lets him get really deep in there. He's cut the corner just a little bit. Will he get away with that one? I think he just might.
He certainly hit the apex.
I think it totally looks like he's got a slowdown. Does it not?
Not sure.
He was all the way to the left-hand side on the brakes early, and look at this. Kyle doesn't know what to do.
Well, if you're in the lead, sometimes if you're a little bit wily about it, you can go and give back a slowdown without giving back a ton of time. And I wonder if that's what Hancock's managed to pull off there. That was pretty remarkable, though. And those new tires really seem to be paying off for him. Meanwhile, behind them, Mark Kruger and Andrew Cossack are still going at it quite strongly. Cossack keeps trying to make moves and then keeps having to take evasive action when Kruger closes the door on him.
Wonder how closely Andy Cossack thinks this Jetta drives compared to the Saturn. They sound different, I'm sure. The wing on his most mint vehicle is much larger than the non-existent wing. There's a little boot lid spoiler as he gives that boot lid a little rub.
I hope for his sake that the Saturn handles better than this thing does.
Look, he's even got that most minty interior. From the factory, that thing was the mint if everything inside is that color. They dipped the whole shell.
Gets a nice little run there. Ooh, has to check up though on the exit. Gets some overlap though. Ooh, and
pushes contact, pushes him off the track as well. That was a move very different to any we've seen so far. Is it bumper cars? Is that a fair move in these?
I guess so. I mean, it's hard to make an overtake, but that was certainly using your opponent's tires to help you stop.
Pushes the envelope for good sportsmanship. There was still a car's width around the outside there, but he definitely did help himself make the corner by just leaning on leaning on Paul Kruger.
Oh, Kruger, yeah, sorry. I was looking at Kowalczyk and Love again. The two of them are still fairly close and kind of battling it out for that third place.
Love got in front, did he? I think here.
Yeah. Love managed to find some room around the final turn and get a nice good run. Kowalczyk kind of sticking it in too deep into the corner number 15 there, and ran it real wide and gave Love the opportunity. And now Love is kind of unleashed and suddenly making up lots of ground towards Chris Nicely.
One of the long shots there, you could see a lot of the RVs parked here at Mid-Ohio, and I think I saw Justin Hall in the window. I think that's where he's gone.
He's pre-drinking before the weekend. Shame for him. No, Mr. Producer, I will not repeat that on air.
If you see the kitchen exhaust fan running, don't be surprised. You might get a bit hungry. And so was I watching Kruger. I was thinking, do I have the things around to make some nachos?
With that Dorito car there, yeah, absolutely. Nick Love, though, is certainly closing it down. Now only 9/10 behind Chris Nicely, made up about 3 to 4 tenths of a second that last lap.
fact, the last lap was half a tenth away from being his PB in this race for Nick Love. It's a late bloom where everyone else is a little bit away from their PBs. For example, Knisley was 1.3 seconds off his PB. McCormick was just 7 tenths off his PB. Love is right up with his best of the race.
And if he keeps that up, he'll be able to definitely make something happen here. And they will be coming up on some lap traffic shortly. We just saw on the side monitor there, Keith Carlson going by. Looks like Scott Grinnell, so that could be a factor for these guys in their little battle here.
There's one thing this race car is an advertisement for. Well, it was meant to be clean emissions, but actually it might be the durability and longevity of these cars, because we have had one retirement in 50 minutes and everyone else is still running.
And, honestly, series like this are a little silly in retrospect, but, really kind of epitomizes what ChampCar is all about, just cheap racing. Oh,
why did I curse
crash there?
This?
What? Who was that? Looks like David Palermo. And is that Troy flipping through the air? Oh, no, that was Palermo. And he got cleaned out by Sean Saputra. The two of them got kind of hooked up going down the straightaway. Saputra carries on, and Palermo tests out the physics in iRacing, puts it over 3-4 times.
Keeps going, lands on his wheels, keeps going.
Seems legit.
To that car, though, and it's going to have to pit again, and he'll be one of our drivers to make a second pit stop. In the meantime, Love and Knisley have just changed positions. Knisley's thinking about coming back for third place. And it lets close in around the outside. Not a trailer park girl for Chris Knisley.
Well, and that move there from Nick Love was real quality. He had a lot of pressure on Knisley through that turn 3 chicane that we're running today, and managed to force Knisley into running it wide into turn 4. And then Nicholas Love just planted it on the entry, got back to throttle real early, and beat Knisley all the way off the corner.
So Saputra and Palermo both on pit lane again. They would have been battling for 13th or 14th at that time. Space was asked for, space was not given, and it was a dramatic recreation of some of the gymnastics from the Olympics. Stuck the landing though, so that gets an 8 from this judge.
I'm going to give it a 7.5, but those Canadian judges are always so hard on people, right?
You're like, no, I've seen someone on a snowmobile hit a ramp and do better. Ooh, bud.
Absolutely. And Nick Love seems to be just comfortably driving away. I don't know what he's found in this part of the race here, but all of a sudden in this phase, he really seems to have some pace relative to those other guys.
In a long race like this, I think it's the power of the sunglasses.
Could very well be. Kyle Smith and Neil Hancock are getting close together again. Kyle Smith coming down the new front straightaway, however you want to call it, and closing up pretty tight under braking. Hancock's had a slower lap last time by, not too bad, but Kyle Smith has managed to get right back on his rear bumper. It's looking racy.
Agent Smith's been pretty consistent here, and we know that Hancock had those new tires, but I think they're as good as anyone else's now after they've done 4 or 5 laps. Very, very hard compound road tire. So what's good about them, fresh out of a pit stop, is they're cold, but once they're warm, they might as well be identical in performance to a set that have done 10,000 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So all that that pushing and using the performance might have almost taught him some bad habits now that they've warmed up and worn in. It's not quite as consistent and maybe almost overdriving it now compared to unflappable Kyle Smith.
Does seem pretty comfortable on the entry to turn one, but Kyle really seems to have him beat through the back half of the course. Gets real wide going into the hairpin there.
Still works for a racing line though. It's interesting, particularly with that keyhole, how flexible the racing line becomes at the hairpin. Without it, when you arrive in a straight line for the hairpin, there's still sort of two possible lines: follow the curb all the way around at the apex or take a late apex. But with that keyhole sort of chicane entry, people are all over the place, picking and choosing different ways to negotiate that.
Mm-hmm. Kyle keeps pushing though, looking for some overlap.
Good to have some battles late on here as well, because Albert and Greg Vandervert are still going for it, and Tim Wire, you remember, was off the road in the final sector not long ago. He's caught them back up, so Wire does have a fire in his belly and some good late speed and late performance in this race. Only 5 minutes to go, 4 laps to go at this point, so it is starting to heat up just a little bit. We've seen them sort of almost pack racing with these Jettas. Now they are trying to make the moves in concrete.
Well, Nicely's trying to stick with Nick Love at this point. He's doing a pretty good job of it, and that could really become a factor here with 5 minutes to go, because just ahead of them up the road are Palermo and Grinnell, who are a lap down, but also racing for position, rather. And so if those two decide that their race matters more than the leaders, they could quickly become a rolling roadblock. That would be just the sort of thing that Nicely needs to sneak back by.
A clever distraction, useful for many things, including trying to make a pass for the podium. I need to run a spreadsheet a little more carefully, because I want to say if he could do it, it'd be Knisley's first podium of the season.
I believe so. Yeah.
I feel like Love might have had one before. He's pretty handy in the MX-5.
Love's actually had a win.
That's right.
Already this season, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty handy indeed, isn't it? So the drivers are going side by side, having a little bit of a battle in front of them here. So Grinnell and Palermo. Grinnell in red, Palermo in black, and that's a spot for Palermo, and now Grinnell is going to stay right out of the way of this battle. So good for Love. Not necessarily what Knisley would have wanted, but they still got another car, another driver that might cause a headache for Nick Love.
Yeah, in iRacing, these blue flags are actually technically informational, so it's not like Formula One where you have to jump out of the way. Grinnell, though, seems to have taken it very wholeheartedly and gotten out of the way. And now Palermo seems to be making a little bit of room for them, though not too much. Spending a lot of time on the marbles and really squeezes down Chris Nice's line there, kind of compromises his exit. Not going to be a factor, it looks like, in this little battle between the two of them. 3 minutes to go.
Palermo's been for a somersault once. He's seen these guys coming through to lap him, and he's decided not again. And so Love had to take the shallow entry, and Knisley had to take the shallow exit. I think it's all square between them. They're right back to where they were before they caught that group.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, Kyle Smith and Neil Hancock were real close going through the keyhole that time. Hancock's gotten a better run off the corner again. But these two are continuing their battle for the back half of the top 5.
Absolutely, they
top
are.
6 even.
Yeah, the consistency from Smith is what's keeping him with this pack. They're getting caught by Andrew Kosick, though. Might run out of laps and run out of time for Kosick, but he's catching him.
Well, and I'm watching Kyle from behind here and just watching him having to tap the brakes a little bit extra on every single apex from what I can see. So if he manages to roll it through without getting kind of blocked or having a Hancock park it on the apex for him, he's going to have a shot here, but easier said than done.
Likes to turn it in a little bit earlier. Oh, almost a bit of a lock up there as they come across the crest for Smith. He likes to turn it in just a little bit earlier, take the smooth arc in rather than crank a bunch of lock later on into the corner is maybe what we're seeing from Hancock.
Which, honestly, with a car like this is kind of a good strategy sometimes because it can help upset the car and get you a little more rotation, right? So different styles, different ways of getting the lap time. Wow, and Kyle drifted it all the way across that apex curve, but manages to stick it and really seems to get going through the keyhole there. Though it always seems like Hancock has a little bit more on the exit.
So your leader, Mark McCormick, is about to start the final lap of the race, well clear of Keith Carlson in second. Love and Knisley battling for third, Hancock and Smith battling for sixth, Albert Vandervert and Wire battling for 10th. There could be some excitement still on the final lap of the race. Particularly, I want to think Tim Wire could be the powder keg. It's not quite as close, but he definitely had the speed to catch the pack in front and had some redemption that he was aiming for.
Yeah, and Alex Albert is holding on for all he's worth. I mean, 10 points isn't worth a ton when you're battling for the championship, but it's certainly better than dropping the week. Kyle Smith is right on the bumper of Neil Hancock as well as they come across the line, take that white flag. So we'll see if there's any desperate moves in his future too.
And
we'll get close enough there.
Half a lap still to go for McCormick, so we'll make sure we check in on him. I mean, we haven't watched a whole lot of him because it's been near flawless from McCormick.
Yeah, very impressive performance from him today. Can't say enough. Keeping the cameras on what's exciting, but
yeah, a bit of traffic for Hancock, but also it's about even for Kyle Smith there, so he doesn't get the chance to make a run. But McCormick is going to come through the final sector and he gets a chance to run to the checkered flag from pole. Fastest lap of the race, unstoppable in the Volkswagen Jetta. It's back-to-back wins in the ChampCar iRacing series for Mark McCormick.
Well done to him. We'll have to talk to him after the race. Carlson too will be taking it across the line. I'm watching Nicely and Nicholas Love here on board. Nicely's been right up on his bumper a number of times this lap, but hasn't managed to find his way past a couple, maybe one more passing opportunity here as they go into the final corner.
I was wise to it, he just parked it all the way at the right-hand side of the road and said, you're not getting down the inside here. Ooh. Now it's flat out to the line for them, and Love is going to take that final step on the podium.
Mm-hmm. Kowalczyk going to cross the line for 5th place with an impressive 30 incidents out there. Great job.
And Hancock leading from Smith and Kosick. Krug will be next, and then the battle pack after that, Albert, Vandervert, Wire. Wire is real close. He's right at the bumper, but that is just not close enough through the final sector to get down the inside. There you go. Cover off the inside cleverly, and Vandervert will get 11th from Wire in 12th.
Mm-hmm. And then Jay Sofianek and Troy Isidore are going to cross the line. The last two cars on the lead lap. Sofianek, number 1 car, crosses the line in 13th. Started 13th, so can't be too sad about it. And Troy Isidore even managed to get him a place. Going to finish 14th place here. Finishing what was a quiet race at Mid-Ohio.
Was road car muffler on these things as well. Isidore was the last car on the lead lap, and 14th, 1 position gained. So let's run through the results after 36 laps, 1 hour of Mid-Ohio for round 12 of the ChampCar iRacing series. So your winner, Mark McCormick, Keith Carlson from the 3rd row of the grid. I reckon, I told you, just silent assassin picking up the points, 2nd place for him, and exciting little race for Love. Too much excitement early, fought his way back through the field, and he grabs the podium ahead of Chris Knisley. Charles Kowalczyk in 5th, then Hancock, Smith, Kosick, Kruger, and Alex Albert to round out the top 10. Then Greg Vandervert, Tim Wyer, Jay Safianek, Troy Isidore, we said, last car on the lead lap. 1 lap down for Palermo, Grinnell, and Warden. Sean Saputra, I think, parked it 10 minutes to go after him and Palermo had that contact. He decided he was done. And Justin Hall, early retirement after just 5 laps. And John Vexler did not take the start of the race. So let's see who we got to chat with us after the race here. And why not the winner, back-to-back wins, Mark McCormick, and you had probably the most boring race of everyone, but you get rewarded for it at the end.
Yeah, I guess I was losing concentration most of the race. Got a little help from Nick picking out some of the cars behind me on accident, I think. Got lucky there.
60 minutes, almost solo lapping time trial will help you sleep tonight from the Volkswagen Jetta, but it's still a car that you've had a real speed advantage. You qualified pole, definitely one of your stronger cars. What is it that you've found in the Jetta that no one else has got?
I don't know if it's something no one else has. I've been playing around a little bit with the throttle inputs in the corners and trying to get the car pitched early with the brakes. I practiced more than 5 minutes this time, so I guess a little practice goes a long ways.
Certainly could. And I mean, Mid-Ohio, a track that gets a decent run on iRacing, but first time in the ChampCar iRacing series. How did you find the circuit? Got a little bit of elevation change given that Ohio is otherwise relatively flat.
I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, as far as the Jetta goes, relatively speaking, it was fun because you get to kind of dance the car a little bit on the brakes with the entry oversteer in order to get the most out of it.
Pit stop. You had the quickest pit stop of everyone else as well. 1 gallon, 2 gallons, not a lot of diesel required to make an hour in these cars.
Yeah, I think I got a tire for free and took just enough fuel. I kind of psyched myself out on the fuel, so I was saving like a madman just to make sure. I would be interested to see if I actually would have made it or not. I was worried we were going to go 1 lap longer than the practice round because the conditions were cooler and we were lapping 2 seconds faster. So I wasn't sure about that. I wanted to make sure I had enough.
Well, as we say, all things considered, you've got to be happy with the win. Big bag of points. Starts to look good with just 4 rounds left to go.
I hope I can give you all 4 really boring races.
And since we last spoke, I looked it up. The track in Oklahoma is Hallett, and it is near Tulsa. But again, when you want to dip your toes in the ChampCar world, there are more exciting tracks just a couple further minute plane ride away. Mark McCormick, congratulations. Back-to-back wins, starts to look really good, especially 2 different tracks, 2 different cars. Anyone you want to thank, any final shout-outs you want to give here on the HJBC broadcast?
I want to thank you guys and my family for giving me the time. Actually, I have family in town. They're staying in the room that my rig is in, so my sister-in-law had to stay up late because she goes to bed so early so I could race tonight. So thanks to her, and thank you guys, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Family's a real team player, and it wasn't in vain. Let's got one other driver on the podium we can go and grab by the scruff of the neck. It's Nick Love, and you definitely had a more exciting race than our race winner Mark McCormick. Lots of battles for you, but in the end, still a podium.
Yeah, it was really hard fought and just a lot of really good, clean racing. And being about 2 feet from a car next to me pretty much the whole time, but that was a lot of fun. I'm just really lucky I was able to make it up here.
Race week at Mid-Ohio, did you see that on the schedule and go, oh, Mid-Ohio? Or did you see that and go, oh, yeah, Mid-Ohio? What were your thoughts heading in, and how do you feel for the track?
So I've never raced there in person. I love the track and iRacing. It's a lot of fun. Would really wanted to make it down this year for ChampCar, but it just wasn't in the cards. But kind of wish we weren't doing it in the Jetta, but I love the track. It seems awesome. I'm jealous of you guys.
Always some interesting liveries throughout the field when we have one of these Volkswagen Jetta races. A lot of people pick something off Trading Paints. You're rolling in the Blues Brothers mobile. Did that bring you any good luck, or did it make you a bit of a magnet for contact?
Yeah, well, it's usually bad luck on my part. I think maybe 5 or 6 laps in, I put a tire into the grass and did a little half spin and ended up knocking out Albert, and I think I hit Keith as well. So I kind of messed a few guys up there early. Felt kind of bad about that, but that's just how it is sometimes.
Well, it's wheel-to-wheel racing, not a time attack. You want to treat your competitors with some respect, but you're racing out there at the end of the day. So, a win in Long Beach. Now a couple more podiums. You've been consistently showing up. What's the bucket list track for Nick Love and Love Racing that you'd maybe put a free entry towards if you were drawn from the hat?
Well, I've got a lot of our team is in Texas, and we always dream about going to Coda. I think that's not on the calendar this year, but we're hoping when it pops back up, maybe. But also Laguna Seca. That's always been a dream of mine since I was a kid. So if we could make that happen, it's a tow across the country, but we'd do it.
Yeah, very well-known, well-liked, really exciting track, a lot more elevation change than even here at Mid-Ohio. Nick Love, congratulations on a podium. Shout-outs, thanks. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I think a shout-out to Charles Kowalczyk. He was up here, got a qualifying lap in this time and got a race with him quite a bit. He's got the pace there. It was a lot of fun.
Well, good on you. A podium, points haul, laps completed, scored for the participation, and hopefully we'll see you for 4 remaining rounds.
All right, I'll be here. Thanks, guys.
Well, Devin, give me some thoughts to close up Mid-Ohio round 12 of ChampCar iRacing Series.
Well, that was an exciting race. Good news for Nick Love there. We'll be going to Laguna Seca next time on October 6th. And I hope that the Mazda provides as quality of racing as we saw today. I've kind of had some doubts about this Jetta's inclusion, but it delivered today, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. All of the schedule, all the information on the ChampCar forum, forum.champcar.org. If you're an iRacing member and you want to come racing in this league, never too late to join. If you're a ChampCar member thinking you want to dip your toes into iRacing and the sim racing world, there's a lot of really useful information there about what equipment you might want to buy, how to set up your rig, any little bit of information you might need to get into iRacing. There's some ChampCar members on the forum there, more than willing to help, some useful guides and all the information about how to sign up as well. So hopefully, with some exciting tracks still left in the calendar, we'll have some good participation for them. But that is all from us here at Mid-Ohio on HJBC. Been David Haynes, Devin Peters with me. We look forward to seeing you next month at Laguna Seca for round 13. Until then, stay well.